Have ever woken up in the morning with an oppressive cloud over your head, over your body, felt like you couldn't pull yourself out of bed and you couldn't think? Anybody felt that? So that happened to me. I felt like somebody dropped a piano on my chest and turned a blender on in my brain, and I honestly wasn't sure how I was going to get through the day. And I wasn't sure if I was living a dream or if I was living a nightmare. But I knew that back in the 7th grade, when I was sitting in class, I should have been listening to the teacher. I was daydreaming. And what I was daydreaming about was one day I was going to run my own software company. I don't know what made me believe that I could actually do that, except a couple of things. I was 8 years old when I first started coding. I sold my first piece of software to a law firm out of Michigan when I was probably about in the 7th grade. And there was something inside of me that I loved to do this. I had a guaranteed job right after high school, software development job. So I skipped college and went straight into that. The problem was I thought everything was going to be smooth sailing, and I went from this cycle of momentum to just deep, dark, suffocating discouragement. I didn't know what was wrong with me. To make matters worse, the people around me didn't know what was wrong with me. I got accolades from other people saying what a great job I was doing, cheering me on, you can do it. So if I'm so good at software development, why can't I just do it? And that was the question that haunted me. I sat down with my boss to talk about it. He had only one word to describe me: moody. I remember the day when I decided I'm going to do something about it. My closest colleague was halfway across the country in New York. I was trying to work through a project, couldn't get through it. Poured myself a cup of coffee. It was some of the best coffee I've had to this day. We freshly roasted it, carried it downstairs to the downstairs of our office, and I was pacing the floor, and I said, I'm going to figure this thing out. I'm going to figure out what is broken with me and what I'm supposed to be doing. If nobody else has the answers, I will find them. And so that's what I did. I traveled overseas. I actually managed a software team over there for a couple of months, learned the language, learned the local language, and then burned out of that. I actually moved to Colorado here to volunteer at a nonprofit, loved it for a couple of months, and after a little while, burned out. Met my wife, got married, and went back to the only thing I knew to put food on the table: software development. During the first year that we were married, we were celebrating my wife's birthday, and I remember I was so overwhelmed and I had reached such a level of stress and burnout that I started shutting down physically, emotionally, and mentally. Halfway through the meal that we were enjoying together, I said, I just shut down. I couldn't even celebrate my wife's birthday because that's the extent of the stress that had come upon me. And that's when I knew something had to change. I started pursuing personal coaching because I was always interested in growing. And I discovered that it's easier to sell how to become a personal coach than it is to sell personal coaching. I went into marketing. I knew I needed to learn how to market. I started doing marketing consulting, some copywriting, some Google ad management, Facebook management, and I realized that the same thing that I hated about writing software, I hated about managing Facebook ad campaigns. I had to go get in a corner and bury myself. And so through this gracious meeting I had with two of my colleagues, we had this idea: what if we started a company and started building software? I was so burnt out from software, I said, I don't want anything to do with it except maybe the marketing. But over the years, I started learning about what makes me tick. I realized I'm a visionary, I'm a multitasker. I have too many ideas to execute on it, and maybe I could actually be a leader. And that's when I realized that maybe there is a role for me in this software development space. And graciously, these pieces started coming together, and I realized that I do have a place in this thing that we're building. And that's what we do now. We help business owners hand off important parts of their business without risking customers' profit and growth. And we have a process that we go through. I actually have a couple of free trainings that I can give out without going into more detail. We use software to do that. What I didn't tell you at the beginning is that morning when I woke up and I felt like I had a piano dropped on my chest and somebody turned a blender on in my brain, in a moment when I'm probably experiencing more momentum than I've ever experienced in my life, I'm also facing the most resistance. That happened yesterday morning. And here's what I know. In a room of this many people who are doing meaningful, significant things, you experience that. But you look at the person next to you, you don't believe it. So I'm going to ask you to do one of the most difficult things that visionary people like you and I can do, and that's to ask for help. And I want to invite you, if you've been in that place, I'm standing right now, if you've been in that place, maybe it's in the last month, the last year, the last week, yesterday, but if you've been in that place where you've had to fight to get up out of bed and to keep moving forward, I want to invite you to stand on your feet. And I want to tell you guys, I want you guys to know that what you're doing matters. The reason that you're facing resistance is because you're doing something that matters. And I want you to know that you're not alone. Thank you guys.